Thank you. So today's session is going to be on how to support students transition to college over the summer, especially with the FAFSA delays, unprecedented time that we're all in right now. Obviously, we've never seen such delays with the FAFSA and what that could mean for our students that are going to be graduating here within the next few weeks and what we can do to help get them on campus at the end of summer. So let's go ahead and get started. Just before we begin, the session is being recorded. If you're having trouble connecting audio through your computer, you can use the call me option for audio instead. You'd go up to the audio setting. You would just click the call me. It would be calling you on your phone. You'd hear us through your phone, but see us on your screen. And if you do happen to have any questions during today's session, you can go ahead and use the Q&A feature to ask questions. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So our agenda today, first we're going to be going over what summer melt is, and what that means for our students, what verification melt is, because they are a little bit different, though they can be grouped together as well, just overarching summer melt and what happens to students and what can happen in the sense that they don't end up stepping on campus at the end of summer. Then we're going to go over how to prevent summer and verification melt, especially for counselors that don't have office hours over the summer, or maybe very limited office hours over the summer, or don't work at all. And then we're going to go over resources at the very end. So, like I said, we're in an unprecedented time, so I do just want to give everybody a timeline with the FAFSA delays. So, in mid-April, the FAFSA corrections process became available for students. There have been students that have been waiting since January to make corrections on their FAFSA, but it did become available. I just recently, last week, helped a student make some corrections on her FAFSA. So that is available now, as well as the Department of Ed. They have reprocessed 2024, 2025 FAFSAs that were affected by tax data issues. So all of those records have been sent to colleges by May 1st. So if you all have heard about the reprocessing that happened, just know that it is complete. And also, we just got word this week that paper FAFSAs will begin processing in June. So if you do have students that submitted a paper FAFSA and they're willing to wait until June for it to be processed, that's totally fine. But if they are still able to complete an online FAFSA, we just recommend to do so. If they're, trying to hit some sort of deadline or cases like that, just to have their FAFSA processed a little bit faster. So what does this mean, for students as we're approaching graduation, and we're going to be, letting our students go into the summer and, try to figure out the rest of this process by themselves, right? So since the FAFSA was delayed, that meant that institutional student information record, or ISERs, that are sent to the colleges themselves, those were delayed as well, as you just heard. There had to be corrections that were made. And like I just told you, the corrections have all been sent by May 1st, but traditionally May 1st was decision day for most students, right? So a lot of schools have moved their decision date to dates such as June 1st and even later. But just wanted to put that out there, that because those things are delayed, everything else is also delayed. So financial aid offers have been delayed as well, though we have gotten word that students have started receiving their financial aid offers. So hopefully within this next 2 weeks to a month, most, if not all of your students should be receiving their financial aid offers, so long as they were able to complete a FAFSA. We still have a good percentage of students that weren't still to this day unable to complete a FAFSA for whatever reason, website glitch, right? So we have to make sure that the students who were unable to complete a FAFSA but still wanted to get that done. But then those that were able to complete a FAFSA successfully, that they get some help with going through their financial aid offers and just figuring out which school will be the most fiscally responsible for them. And what about, the verification process? Then that is also, moved quite a bit back. So if they do get selected for verification, they need to make sure that they're getting that done as well. If they need to submit an appeal, or a professional judgment appeal, again, all of these things are a little bit delayed, not just a little bit, but they are delayed for this school year. So that will also delay students' final decisions on where they're going to go. So let's go ahead and get into the content for today. So what is summer melt? So summer melt is when a student, they are accepted to a post-secondary institution. They, more than likely know where they're going to go, but for whatever reason, they may even make a deposit, right? Or taken other steps to be ready to attend in the fall, but they don't. For whatever reason, they do not end up going to that school. We're going to be going over, what causes summer melt. So, right, as students prepare to transition to college upon completing high school, there's still barriers that they may face in the summer, and especially now this year with all of those other processes being delayed, and maybe now over the summer they won't have access to you all as counselors to help them with some of these outstanding processes that have been delayed. So what are some causes of summer melt? Just a lack of familiarity of the support and resources available to them, right? They may not know, who, just an example, who the ISAC Corps is, that the ISAC Corps works year round and that they can help students with their financial aid and rating financial aid offers and helping them with some of those summer checklist items that they need to be getting done before going on campus. Maybe their family members have little to no experience with the college going process either, so even they're really not sure what needs to be done over the summer to make sure that their students can step foot on campus and start their classes. Maybe they don't have technology access at home. So, what are some of the things that you can let the student know? Like you can go to, your local library if you need technology access, or, a McDonald's or whatever the case may be, letting them know where they could find technology access over the summer if they do need it. And then just the complexity of completing all of these pending processes, right? Especially with that submitting a financial aid application for this 24-25 filing cycle, there are still quite a bit of students that have not been able to submit a FAFSA this year. So that's just one group of students to help finish those processes over the summer. But then we still have, everybody else that maybe they were able to complete the FAFSA, but because of all those pushbacks and with the timeline being moved into the summer, they'll still need help with other things as well. Submitting verification documents, right? Maybe they don't even know they're selected for verification. Maybe they don't know what exactly the school is asking them for. Submitting housing applications. There's so many little things over the summer that might just go over a student's head if they don't know to look out for it ahead of time. So just want to go over some impacts of summer melt. So an estimated 10 to 40% of high school students with an intention of enrolling in college never actually do so. Students who are disproportionately affected by summer melt are our low-income students, our students of color, and our first-generation students. There are also over 1 million fewer undergraduates in the country in 2024 versus 2018. Now, this is not necessarily surprising for us, right? We had a pandemic. There was a huge pandemic melt. It warranted its own name, but also with this past year too, a lot of schools are expecting to see enrollment go down with this, everything that's going on with the FAFSA as well. So in 2023, we did see a slight increase. It mainly came from those that are enrolling in community colleges, and those that are ages 20 and younger haven't increased and remain 5% lower than in 2019. So what are some things that can be done or things that have already been done that have shown to help students over the summer? So one of those things is a texting program. So there was a pilot program called Tech Steps that was launched in Wisconsin. So in the class of 2018 was their control group, and the class of 2019 was the students who received the texting services over the summer. And across all of those districts, the average fall enrollment increased by 3%. So that's pretty good. We've seen that texting services here at ISAC, we use Signal Fine for our texting services. I will go over some of the resources for you all as well with those texting services, but schools can create their own as well. We've seen that it helps students because they at least have somebody to talk to over the summer if they do have any outstanding questions and they're not sure who to go to at their institution that they want to enroll in. And as well as economically disadvantaged students in the program had a 64% enrollment rate in 2019 compared to 37% not in the Tech Steps program who enrolled in 2018. Okay, so just want to go over some incoming freshman summer action items. So once a student has committed to an institution, there are still tasks that they have to complete before they set foot on campus, right? But besides that, even before picking their institution, they need to, right, they need to go over their financial aid offers. Since students are just now getting those and they're about to graduate, right, that still is something that they need to do before they decide on a school, right? But once they do decide on a school, they need to learn how to access and navigate their school's online portal. If they're still deciding on a school, they may need to do it for multiple schools. And every school's portal is a little bit different. So some students get a little bit confused on like where to go in the portal for what, and what is this like action item I need to do? What is verification? Stuff like that. So just learning the ins and outs of their school's portal. Just receiving and reviewing financial aid offers. So accepting or declining certain scholarships or grants or student loans. I just recently last year helped my cousin with his financial aid offer, and I remember him asking me about loans, and he's like, there's two different types of loans. So what is the difference between these two types? And I said, well, an unsubsidized loan, the interest is always on you and it starts accruing right away, as opposed to a subsidized loan. The interest is paid by the federal government until you graduate. And he's like, I don't want unsubsidized loans. How do I, let the school know that? And I told him, you have to reach out to the financial aid office and say, hey, I want the subsidized loan, but I don't want the unsubsidized loan. So you have to go in and either accept or deny these certain types of financial aid that you're being offered. So I think that was a very smart move, a smart decision on his part. But there's other things as well. So apply and submit housing applications if that's applicable to that student, if they decide to live on campus. So that could mean submitting housing deposits or selecting a meal plan. Some schools require that their freshman students only have like one meal plan or maybe one housing option that's available for them. Not all schools, that's just some schools. I know my school, when I was a freshman, we only had one dorm for freshmen and one meal plan that freshmen could choose from. So sometimes they won't have to select one, but more often than not, they do, especially if it's a bigger school that has more housing options. They have to register, attend orientation or an admitted student day. So just making sure that they get that done as well. That'll help them, I feel like, more than a lot of the other things that they have to do, because then they'll really be, around admissions people, around other students that go to the school. They can ask questions. They can see the different offices and what the different offices are for. Like, this is the bursar's office, this is the financial aid office. You go to this office for these questions, right? So usually that's one of the most important days for them to get to know their campus. And then also determine their cost of attendance at the end of everything, right? So cost of attendance is always just a estimate of what a student will be paying. So the student should really be looking at, tuition and fees, what gets paid directly to the school, and then everything else, again, like I said, is usually an estimate. So seeing how much books will cost them per semester on average. How can they find books for cheaper, right? Can they use Chegg? Can they use Amazon? If they have health insurance through their parents, they need to make sure that they get the health insurance waiver. Some students don't know about that. Most schools will automatically give students health insurance and they have to waive it, otherwise they'll get charged for it. So just figuring out what those extra charges are, if they have to have a parking permit, if they have a car. At my school, parking permits were like $200 a semester. It was ridiculous. But just making sure that they have the money for those transportation pieces, for miscellaneous living expenses, because once they determine that overall cost of attendance, at least per semester, then if they're working over the summer, if they're working during the year, they know this is how I can pay for those things that don't necessarily go directly to the school. Other summer action items, so completing the verification process if they are selected. So the verification process, it can be a little bit confusing, and if a student doesn't already know what verification is, they may think that they did something wrong, but just letting students know that verification is a common process and that they just need to submit the documents that they're being asked for and nothing more. So if they're being asked for a tax return transcript, telling them how they can obtain one. More often than not, the school will, if they have questions, they can ask the school, but also, having that as a teaching moment before they leave the school, right? Like, hey, this is verification, or if there's like a financial aid night, whatever, just really talking about verification, what the documents that they may need are and how to get them. That'll help students as they leave your school into the summer, especially this year. Sending final transcripts, if they have AP scores, sending those in as well. Take placement testing if they need to, potentially take more than one. More often than not, it's usually math and then sometimes English, depending on the school. Receive their immunizations if they need them, and then submitting those records through the student portal. Sometimes students don't know that they need to do that as well. Arrange transportation to and from school. So how am I going to get to campus? Let's say they're Chicagoland born and raised, but they want to go down to U of I. Like, how am I going to get there? Am I going to have mom and dad drive me? Am I going to take a train? Are they going to help me move in? But then from then on, I have to take a train. Just things like that. And then finally, register for classes. So setting up a time to meet with an academic advisor, that typically is going to happen during those like admitted student days and stuff like that. They'll have specific time. But if they don't attend that or whatever the case may be, just making sure that they do still register for classes on time. Okay, so let's go into what verification melt is specifically. So verification melt is when a student fails to complete the verification process, and that can derail a student's receiving their federal financial aid. So that could be the Pell Grant, but also, right, like the MAP grant, really any other financial aid that they receive. If they are stuck in verification, that's going to halt being able to disperse their funds, right? So just making sure students know if there's any deadlines to submit verification documents that have to be met. Low-income students also are disproportionately selected for verification more often than not. And for this year, we know that verification is going to be reduced, especially for those that are able to use the direct data exchange. But if they're not able to use the direct data exchange on the FAFSA, letting those students know how to find a tax return transcript and just order those ahead of time so that they have it ready in case they do get that verification notification. So what causes verification melt? So it could be difficulty obtaining the requested documentation. Maybe they don't know the process for obtaining certain documents, such as a tax return transcript. So that's why I was saying it's really important to teach students how to do that. Or maybe they're unable to provide requested documents for whatever reason. Another thing is and I think this is probably the most often reason, just being unaware of being selected for verification. When I was still a core member and I was still helping students on the ground, more often than not, a student would come in for office hours and be like, "Oh, yeah, I heard about verification, but I don't know if I was selected. Can you help me out with that?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And we'd go through their emails, and all of the emails are unread, right? They have like 1,000,001 emails in their inbox. And you type in, let's say you type in the school that they want to go to, right? And then there was like 5, 10 emails on verification alone, like, "Hey, you were selected. Hey, you needed to turn this in," or whatever the email would say. And so I would be like, "Okay, we just got to make sure that we are reading our emails, especially for the schools that we are the most interested in. If not all of the schools, just, whatever the student um, decides. Maybe there's like a 2 or 3 schools that they are really interested in, and those are the ones that they're going to move forward with the verification process, and then they get their financial aid offers. They want to make sure they do it for every single school. That's fine too. Um, Also, lack of an understanding about the verification process and why it's necessary. So again, some students, some families, they fear that because they were selected for verification, they may have done something wrong. And more often than not, it's just if there was something wrong with their form, it's just human error. So the purpose of verification is to fix that, right? So if you turn in the forms that you need to turn in, things can be fixed on the school side. So sometimes students and families, they're just afraid of making things worse. So they're like, "I don't know, we did something wrong. We don't want to be in trouble," like whatever the case may be, right? So that's where that fear comes from being selected for verification. Okay, so just some impacts of verification melt. So NCAN, the National College Attainment Network, estimates that about 7.2% of students experience verification melt, and being selected for verification decreases a student's likelihood for immediate enrollment by 3.8%. And for underrepresented students, it's about 5.8%. Students who filed a FAFSA later were selected for verification saw a further decrease in likelihood for immediate enrollment. So I remember there was a student specifically who experienced verification melt, but she ended up going anyway. She just had all of her financial aid halted. She was not able to use financial aid for a whole year, and the only reason is because she wasn't able to obtain her W-2 from a previous employer. And I know that that seems, like for at least for me at the time, it was super upsetting, but I let her know, like, "Hey, moving forward, make sure that you keep all of the W-2s from the places that you work in case you do get asked again for these documents so that we can make sure that you're receiving the financial aid that you need." So just want to go through this graphic with you all really quick. So this is a pathway through the FAFSA process. This is called the leaky FAFSA pipeline. So I'm gonna go through each of these. As you can see, let's say there's 1.1 million students who will submit a FAFSA. So more than 40% of those seniors may not end up submitting. So let's say it's around 999K that do actually successfully complete the FAFSA. And then 44% of those students, so around 442K, are selected for verification. Okay, so then 32K, or 7% of those selected for verification, will experience verification melt. So moving forward, 265K, or 26.5% of students, they are awarded subsidized aid, who are awarded, sorry, will experience summer melt. So at the end of everything, we start with that 1.1 million, only 702,000 will end up, enrolling and receiving the aid that they need. So we are losing students along the way to verification melt, to summer melt, all of those types of things. Maybe they weren't even able to complete a FAFSA in the first place, and they just didn't know who to go to for help on those things. So, we're losing students with this very lengthy process. So it's up to us to help students know what is each step in the process and how to get through each of those steps. So what are some verification action items that you can send to your students? So the first one is using the direct data exchange if they are able to use the direct data exchange. So if y'all don't already know, the direct data exchange replaced the IRS data retrieval tool this year, and moving forward, that's what it's going to be called. That is just where the tax information from the IRS is going to be directly imported into the FAFSA. Another is to submit a tax return transcript, submit a change of address form if it's applicable, again, making sure that the student knows to only turn in what is being requested of them. These are just examples of different documents that they may be asked for. Secure and submit copies of W-2 information, both the students and parents if it's needed. Submit other supporting documentation that's requested by the institution. And as we know, verification is being reduced for the 24-25 filing cycle, and most of that is due to now having the direct data exchange. That just means that verification for financial pieces specifically is going to be reduced because we know that what is coming in from the IRS is correct. So there's no need to verify. So I do want to note that some of the counselors that I worked with, what they did for their students is if they knew that a student is likely to be selected for verification, or maybe they saw it on the what used to be called a student A report, now is the FAFSA submission summary, if they saw that little asterisk next to their uh, what used to be EFC is now an SAI. If they see an asterisk next to it, they know that they got automatically selected for verification from the FAFSA processing. So what these counselors would do is they would let the students know, hey, you are already selected for verification. I'm just going to, like, here now during office hours, make you go through obtaining a tax return transcript, make you find a W-2 if you had one, right? Or if your parents have W-2s, and make you fill out some of these other documents, just so when you do get an email saying that you were selected for verification, you have those items already ready so that you can turn it in and get it done in a timely manner. So that's what the counselor did, is if she knew that the students were going to be selected for verification, she had them obtain those documents right away. So let's go through how to help prevent summer verification melts and what are some action items that you as counselors can utilize over the summer to help your students out. So the first and I think the most important thing is to let your students know how important it is to read their mail and emails. So maybe your students are pretty good with reading their school email because that's the one that is important for homework and talking to their teachers and all of that, but maybe their personal email that they used to apply to colleges with, they don't really look at it a lot. At least that's what I've noticed with students is their inboxes are, just really, really full and there's so many unread emails. So just really stressing the importance of opening and reading mail and emails very carefully, especially when it comes to the colleges that they applied to. You can tell them, hey, um, look up the specific schools that you applied to, and then it should pull up each of the emails that came from that specific school. So if at the very least they don't want to go through their 100,000 unread emails, they can type in each of the schools and see what was sent to them from those schools. Instructions on how to submit documents, choose housing options, register for orientation, all of those things, just taking a or looking out for those emails. If a response is needed for anything, letting students know how important it is to respond in a timely manner. So typically within 24 hours, and that deadlines may apply for certain things, like verification, for example. Making sure that they know to check their spam and junk folders for their college emails as well. If your email sees that there are a bunch of unread messages from the same source, eventually it's going to be put towards spam and junk because your email will see, hey, you never open up emails from this person. Eventually it gets put into spam or junk. So just making sure that they check those as well. And then finally, the student portals. This is probably one of the items that students need the most help with. Like I was saying earlier, each student portal is super, different. So even just showing students, what a student portal looks like or may look like, what are the different components that usually make up a student portal, right? There's a financial aid section, there's a documents, like required document section, maybe there's action items, stuff like that. So just teaching them how to go through the student portal and what to look out for in their student portal. So preparation checklists, there are so many different checklists that you can send your students off with this year. I'm going to go through those in the resources section, but the preparation checklists are great to keep track of items to prepare for college. One thing that a student can do is print those checklists and place it where family members can also help track their progress, right? Like on a fridge or something, especially if you know students are maybe a little bit procrastinators or they forget easily. If it's somewhere where, the whole family can see what the student needs to do, the parents, they can help check in like, hey, I noticed that you need to do this. Have you done it yet? Making sure that students know to take it one step at a time, that there is still action items over the summer they need to be doing. So what are those items? So it can include, but it's not limited to, accepting a financial aid offer. So choosing their housing option if that's applicable to them, as well as a meal plan. Making sure that they send their final transcripts and they know how to send their final transcripts. And then, start shopping and packing and knowing what to shop for and pack for as well. It can be really helpful for these students. Maybe they don't always know exactly what they'll need to be prepared for campus life. Submitting verification and any additional documentation on time. So if they are selected for verification, just making sure that they submit anything in a timely manner, not to wait until the end of the summer, because again, that can create delays for the student, and only submit the documentation that's being requested by the financial aid office. Not to turn in, everything and anything that they have, but only the documentation that's being requested. Because if they turn in anything else, the college will be required to check that as well. So again, just making sure that it's only what's being requested. Submitting tuition and or housing deposits is important as well. If they, fear like, hey, I don't think I can pay this tuition or housing deposit, or I think I may qualify for a waiver, let them know to inquire about waivers if it's needed for them. If there's any confusion about the documentation that's being requested, knowing who to reach out to the financial aid office, sometimes even the Office of Admissions, though likely they'll just transfer them to the financial aid office, but just knowing who to call and how to ask these questions. Students, they can be a little bit shy and maybe not know which questions to ask. It can be a little bit intimidating to call professionals, right? Like, especially if they don't know what they don't know, they're not even sure how to ask a certain question. So, if you are helping students with verification, like right now, for example, you can help coach them through phone calls and stuff like that. Different questions that they may need to ask these certain offices, which office to go to for what, right? So Bursar, the financial aid office, student services, maybe they need help with getting connected to the disability services office and stuff like that, just knowing who to ask for what. And then finally, attending and visiting the college. So attending a summer open house, again, the admitted students day, whatever. Every college calls it something a little bit different. They can schedule an individual tour or tour the campus virtually if they're not able to visit the campus before they enroll. scheduling that time to meet with an academic advisor. But again, usually schools have some sort of process where they have to meet with an academic advisor. Plan to eat on campus as well. Knowing what's around will help the student with, planning their meals. Like, oh, like there's a Subway on campus, there's a McDonald's on campus, and outside of the campus, there's a few restaurants. Just knowing their area will help them. Talking to students who already attend. And finally, just buying school swag from the campus bookstore can help them as well, with just school spirit. And then finally, asking questions to stay informed. So if the student does have questions, again, like I said, just knowing who to reach out to. So Office of Admissions, for admissions purposes. So let's say, just asking if there's any other documents that the admissions office needs from them, the Student Services Office, if they have any questions about what types of services are on campus, how to get connected to those, the financial aid office if they have questions about their FAFSA or about verification. And then also students can opt into a texting service to receive text reminders relating to things like checking their emails and completing financial aid forms. We have a texting service here at ISAC. I will be going through that in the resources section. Okay, so just some how you can help specifically as counselors. So this is, as is available at your school, right? A lot of counselors don't work over the summer, but there are some counselors that are required to have at least some hours over the summer. So if you are able to do some summer hours, there could be in-person help. So if you have drop-in office hours at the school or maybe at another public place, such as the library, if there's, nothing else that you do over the summer, especially for this summer, hosting maybe 1 or 2 FAFSA completion events over the summer, financial aid nights, making sure it's like a set schedule. And it could also be financial aid offer help as well. So if they need help with that, if you're able to do virtual, that could be like posting FAFSA resources on district and high school websites. I'll give you some resources that you can post as well at the end of this. And if y'all have a texting service, that could really help as well if you don't already, or maybe a dedicated email inbox, or other two-way communication channels that can help. So just setting those up, and if you have out-of-office messages for the summer, linking that into your out-of-office message will help as well. And then finally, update families before the end of the school year with available resources if there are no summer hours whatsoever for any of the counselors at your school. So ISAC core members, that would be, I would say, your go-to. And how to find them and what they can help with. Again, this can also be put in your out-of-office message, like, hey, if you really need help and you're unable to contact one of us, contact your local ISAC core member for financial aid, college-going help, and then link how they can find their ISAC core member. If there's any summer hours that are available, putting that out, and then hand out email resources such as checklists, and we're going to go through some of those, different community-based organizations that are in the area that work throughout the summer, college access programs, all of those types of things, just letting students know, like, hey, just because you're leaving our institution doesn't mean that there is not any other person that can help you with these action items over the summer. Okay, so let's go ahead and go through some of those resources. So, excuse me, the very first resource is our ISAC College Q&A. So students can text us their questions about college or financial aid or whatever the case may be. The ISAC Core College Q&A, this is crucial for students who you feel like might experience summer melt, or if you are looking at, for example, your FAFSA completion data. FAFSA completion has been down by quite a bit this year, all across the board. It's not just in the state of Illinois, but just letting students know that the ISAC core can help them with even just completing their FAFSA over the summer as well, if there's nobody else that can help them out. There's also NCAN's Summer Melt resource page. So NCAN's Summer Melt resource page is something that can be linked to students. So different resources, other summer melt strategies, texting strategies, so that can be helpful. We also have a senior checklist. So our ISAC senior checklist, this is just one of the checklists that you can give out to students if they don't already have a ISAC student portal, signing them up for the ISAC student portal, and they can use this checklist to make sure that they get all of those action items done before the next school year and before they're about to step foot on campus. There's also the PACE student checklist. So this is pretty similar. It is directly related to the PACE framework, but a lot of the action items are similar. This is just another checklist that you can give students as well. The college's websites also typically have next steps, freshmen, what freshmen need to be doing before stepping foot on campus. So just making sure that they know that they can go to their college's website as well, and usually they will be able to find resources there for freshman students. We also have our First Gen Scholars Network. So if y'all have not heard of this already, our First Gen Scholars Network is a network of First Gen students as well as First Gen professionals. So if you have a lot of first gen students in your school, or if you know first gen students that would find something like this helpful, letting them know to join. It will connect them to a mentor. It'll help them find different first gen programs on campuses, as well as there's check-in events. They can also meet, other first gen students, and services for this are free. So just let them know that this is also a network that can help them throughout the summer. So I do just want to go through really quickly how to get a transcript, like a tax return or a tax account transcript. So the IRS website, they would go to irs.gov/individual/get transcript. So if they are selected for verification, or you think that they may be selected for verification, just letting them know right away, like, hey, just get this secured. It's free. They don't have to pay anything to get the transcript. So a tax return transcript are for those that filed a regular tax return. If they filed an amended tax return, they'll need a tax account transcript. So those are just the difference between the two. Regular is just for the tax return transcript, and the tax account transcript is for those that amended. So there are 3 different options for requesting transcripts. So the first one is online, and that's immediate, though people without social security numbers are not able to create an online account to receive that immediate transcript. So they can also choose by phone and by mail. It says 5 to 10 days, but when I was in college, I did it by phone each time, and it took like 3 days to mail to me. So it really didn't take that long. But those are the 3 options that students can use to get those documents that they need for verification. And finally, we have professional development from ISAC as well for professionals, so for counselors, for those that are helping students with the college going process. Our trainings are free. So we have topics that include things like FAFSA line by line, especially this year with the FAFSA changing, FAFSA simplification, working with special student populations. We also host monthly webinars as well as financial aid certification series, though we didn't host one in the spring, but we hope to bring those back as well. So if you or you feel like your school needs help with all of these changes this past year with the FAFSA or whatever the case may be, definitely reach out to us. You would go to our website, isac.org/pd, and you would just go to the professional development request, and then you would fill it out as you see on the right-hand side here. And we also have a new texting service. This is for professionals, college access practitioners specifically, so this isn't for students. It's called ISAC Connection. So again, this is for college access practitioners. If you have any questions, maybe you have a student that's in a really tough FAFSA situation and you're not sure how to help them, or if you have questions about, ISAC in general or ISAC scholarships and just things like that. If you have questions as a college access practitioner, you can text us. So that's our phone number. You can start by texting us your name to get started. Okay, and then there is one more thing that I want to go through today before I leave. So for Illinois public high school students, they are required to complete a FAFSA or a non-participation opt-out form. We know this. This is not being lifted for this school year. And the challenges this year with everything being delayed have made it extra difficult for students and families to complete this process. And we don't want FAFSA completion to be a barrier to graduating. So there are some temporary flexibilities that are in place to assist the schools and the students with this process. So right now, if you have gap access, if you are a counselor that has admin access, you are able to give an admin waiver for the 24-25 school year. So let's say you have a student that did not complete a FAFSA or an alternative app, and they're not completing the online waiver. They're just like, I'm not doing any of those things. And, you've tried what you could with inviting them to FAFSA completion workshops and having one-on-ones with them and trying to get them to, at the very least sign a waiver. If you put in a good faith effort, you are able to select an admin waiver that can be granted to students who have not been able to file FAFSA or the opt-out waiver. So anyone with an admin account now can grant that waiver. So it used to just be principals. Now anybody with an admin account can grant that waiver. So when you do that, what's going to happen, you can share this message with the students if you are granting them an admin waiver, and it just says, an administrative waiver for the high school graduation requirement has been granted and submitted on your behalf. If you're a high school senior and did not complete the FAFSA or the alternative app, please provide your contact information by completing the brief form and that's the website, and you'll receive additional information from ISAC. So then we know who they are, and then we can reach out for extra support if those students need it over the summer. Okay, thank you all for joining us. I forgot the slide with the CE and PD hours, but if you are looking for CE and PD hours, we just ask that you complete our survey. Our survey is pretty short. We just asked for an evaluation of 2 days training. And then once you complete the survey, we are able to give you the CE and PD hours. All right, thank you all for joining today. We will stay on for just a few more minutes in case you do have any questions.